You're listening to the Travis Makes Money podcast presented by GoHighLevel.com. For a free 30-day trial of the best all-in-one digital marketing software tool on the planet, just go to GoHighLevel.com/Travis. What's going on, money makers? Welcome back to the Travis Makes Money podcast, where it's our mission to help you make more money. If you're new to the show, we release brand new conversations with unconventional money makers 7 days a week. So if you haven't yet, please be sure to go to your podcast app of choice, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an opportunity to learn how to make some more cash. And while you're there, if you want to leave us a quick rating review, we will be eternally grateful, as it does help out the show tremendously. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about how to manage your finances with a former professional athlete and my new friend, Alex Feinberg. Starting his career as a professional athlete and later working as an analyst at a global macro hedge fund, Alex was able to use the mental models he built in these highly competitive fields to leapfrog his prior success, making over $1 million as an online entrepreneur while helping clients make and save millions more. Alex, what's up, dude? Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Travis. Excited to be here.
Yes, sir. So let's dive in, man. Tell me how you made your first dollar ever.
First dollar ever or first dollar online?
First dollar ever, period.
First dollar ever. I guess if we don't include my allowance that my parents gave me for simply existing, I was an umpire for youth baseball games. Starting from about 10 or 11 years old, I would get yelled at by upper middle class parents for not having an appropriate strike zone for their son who was pitching.
Yeah, that was you deserved it, Alex. You deserved every bit of it.
And it wasn't bad. We'd make like $13 to $26 a game. This would have been back in like 1996.
All right.
For a couple hours worth of work, obviously not paying taxes at that income threshold and age. So it helped fund the moderate nest egg that I had to fund my food purchases by the time I was in high school, eating 5,000 calories a day, trying to add weight to be strong and athletic as after I accepted my Division I baseball scholarship.
5,000 calories a day.
Yeah. I ate a lot of food, and actually it's really interesting when you mention 5,000 calories a day. A lot of the fallacies that people approach eating with, they approach investing with. And so a lot of typical nutritionists will say, well, if you want to lose fat, you gotta cut your eating. And that's generally true for a lot of people. Like, you do need to burn more calories than you consume. But the most powerful element, if you want to be wealthy and have a good body, is that you're able to burn calories in your sleep and ideally be able to make money in your sleep. So you want to be able to have your passive activity be your most prominent outlying force. And so what I realized with fitness is if I could train in a certain way that really skyrocketed my metabolism, the more food I ate, provided that it was protein dominant real food, the faster my metabolism would be, the more I needed food to continue to have my metabolism be fast. And those parallels between finance and fitness are undeniable, where a lot of advisors will say, well, you're going to become a millionaire if you save $5 a day on coffee and you do it for 30 years and invest in the S&P. And it's like, I mean, maybe that's mathematically true, but by the time you're a millionaire, it's going to cost $900 for a grand slam at Denny's. And the better way to do it is to invest in productive assets that make money in your sleep, or at the very least, figure out how to expand your income so that $5 a day is inconsequential.
Yeah, and the people who always do those calculators too, the numbers that they tend to use are kind of all over the place. Like they'll be like, well, let's just assume the S&P is going to return 12% over the next 40 years. And it's like, wait, why would we assume that? like it is like 12% is higher than it has historically been, right?
Not only might that be higher than it's historically been, you're picking a leading index of a leading country. And so, it's easy to hand pick equity indices in the largest economy in the world and say, well, they're all going to grow at this rate all the time. And it's like, well, if you looked at Rome, in like 100 AD, if they had the equivalent of an S&P, that probably would have been growing pretty fast too. But what would be the likelihood that its growth the next 100 years would replicate its growth the previous 100 years? It's typically not. That's not how numbers work. If you look at whoever's leading the major league in hitting, at the All-Star break, the most realistic assumption is that guy's batting average is going to regress towards the mean, and he might still lead the league at the end of the year, but it's unlikely that his second half performance is going to map to the first half performance. It's probably going to be a little bit more moderated.
Yeah, I just looked it up on ChatGPT. The S&P has historically returned an average of 10 to 11%. So 12% is right a little is right around where it would be. But also fudging the numbers by a point or two can actually have significant impact when you're talking about the idea of compounding interest, especially over 40-year time frame. But it also says that's
Yeah.
before inflation. So it says
Right.
it's around 7 to 8% after inflation over the long term, which is kind of what you were talking about at the outset, which is that the Grand Slam at Denny's is going to cost $900 by the time you have $1 million in your 401k from investing the $72 you didn't spend on Starbucks this month.
And not only is a 1% on the nominal side going to inflate your growth, if you lie about inflation by 1 to 2% on the real side, then that's going to inflate your real growth the same way. So I think that the government's been really understating inflation over the last 45 years,
Yeah.
and that real growth in the S&P probably isn't like 7%. It's probably closer to like 4, which is going to dramatically curtail what those investment projections look like. If you take an 8% growth expectation in real terms and downshift it to 4%, all of a sudden it's going to take you 18 years to double your money instead of 9. And if you're investing over a 36-year time horizon, your money is going to double twice, which is good. You're going to 4x your money, but 4xing your money is a lot different than 16xing your money.
Yeah.
And that turns out to be a very meaningful difference over the course of 32 years.
That is the entire reason for this podcast existence, Alex, is because I think that people are underestimating how much money they need to make. And I like that they look at it as an excuse to sit on their hands because they're like, anybody can become a millionaire. And they follow the personal finance gurus who preach all you got to do is put $72 away every single month. And then in 40 years from now, you'll have $1.4 million. And it's like, and you'll be broke
Right.
with all the other
Right.
millionaires who are also broke at that time. Like 40 years from now is a long time. Look at how much the dollar's changed in the last 40 years.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And
Like
not only
stuff used to
that,
cost less than $1. Like nothing costs less than $1 anymore. Like people could go buy a hamburger for a nickel in like
right.
1970, like,
Right. And if you look at how real wages have trended over the last 45 years, unless your income is in the top few percent, real wages have not increased. And if you believe what I think about inflation being understated, real wages have actually gone down.
yeah,
So if you think that your income is going to keep pace with inflation, I mean, just think about what happened over the last few years.
yeah.
Are you better off now than you were 3 years ago?
And at
Chances
this,
are,
yeah,
go ahead.
sorry, I was going to say, and at the same time, student loan debts increased, credit card debts increased, interest rates have increased, housing prices have increased. So you are making less money than you would have been 15 years ago in real dollars and cents, and even less than that when you look at the interest rate environment and the sheer amount of inflation that's happened in the last decade or two.
Right. Compounding is either going to be working for you or working against you. For
Mm.
probably 19 out of 20 Americans, compounding is working against them for the reasons that you listed. For 1 out of 20 Americans, compounding is working for them.
Sure.
They have either a large amount of money, 7, 8, 9 figures in the S&P or in growth equities, or they have their own small business that can grow at or faster than the rate of inflation. Because the name of the game is growing your asset base and growing your income faster than the rate of inflation. Because if you're not doing that, you're going to get caught behind.
Yeah, you got to be willing to do the math sometimes, man. I was sitting with this guy um this past month. I don't know why my camera's all blurry. Sorry for anybody watching if the camera just got blurry. But I was talking to this guy and he was talking about like asking some financial advice, and of course I'm not a financial advisor, so I always caveat my advice by saying this is not legal advice or financial advice. But what he did say is that he had about 30 something thousand in debt, and his salary was like 58,000 or something like that. And then he was asking what to invest in, and I was like, okay, you shouldn't be investing in anything except for getting that debt to zero. Like that's
Yeah.
that's step number one. But if you want my opinion, what you should be doing is you should be taking the free 40 hours a week that you have after your full-time job and go get another full-time job. It is not a matter of, again, that's my whole point with this thing, man, is like you're far underestimating the amount of money that it's going to take for you to first get out of debt, then to fight inflation, then to actually build wealth for yourself. Like you need to go get another job that makes just as much money as this job, maybe even less money. And you need to take 100% of that income and eliminate that debt in the next 5 months, 6 months. And then you need to take that and then stay at that lifestyle that burn that you currently have, even though you've doubled your income, and then take that extra money and aggressively be, investing it into things that are going to pay dividends and actually attribute to your net worth. It blows my mind, man, how many people don't ever sit down and do the math. This is like the thing that we're here for. We're here to work. We're here to have, we're here to live our lives. You know what I mean? Not just waste them away. And it's like, you're expecting that at some point in the future, this is just going to magically fix itself. That date is not coming. You need to change something about what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, it's because the human brain it's somewhat designed to moderate your anxiety, right? 90% of people think they're above average at everything. And the reason why 90% of people think they're above average at everything is because if you had a realistic understanding of the challenges that you face, a lot of times you wouldn't take the first step to solving them. And so it is, and this is something that I go through with, some of the personal performance personal performance clients that I coach, is you need to create a mental model in your mind that allows the game plan that you're going to execute to be digestible. And so sometimes that does mean taking one bite out of an entire elephant and just focusing on that one bite, not realizing that, you kind of need to take one bite every single day for the next 30,000 days. Just worry about taking the one bite today. And, a lot of people do have the wind in their face. Their back is against the wall. They don't realize it. They're living paycheck to paycheck. They finance cars that they can't afford. I say a lot of things that people find offensive on Twitter. Like, if you can't buy a car in cash, you can't afford it. Like, you should not be having car payments.
Yeah.
I just don't think that unless you're just starting out and you need a car for your job, or you're in a sales role and you can't be driving around in a Honda Civic if you're trying to sell multi-million-dollar real estate buildings. Like, I kind of get that. But unless your debt is productive, unless the debt that you're taking on results in you making more money, you should not have a car payment.
Absolutely.
But that requires Americans living a life that's a little bit more moderated, and a little bit more subdued, and a little bit more embarrassing than a lot of people are prepared to engage with. But it's so funny, like when I bring cleaners over to our house, or when we bring nannies over to our house, like, I make multiples more money than these people bring in, and oftentimes they drive nicer cars than I do. Right?
Bro,
Like,
all you
I
got to
don't
do is
care.
look at Lyft. The
Yeah.
people that pick me up in lifts that are like, oh my gosh, dude, this is like a $80,000 SUV.
Right.
How are you, why are you, just like, I just have so many questions that pop up. And it's like, and I know some people can just justify the expense because, well, I drive for Lyft, and, the VIP black setting on Lyft is going to pay me more money or whatever. So what, you went and got a vehicle that's $40,000 more than the vehicle that you could afford so that you could make an extra $600 a month? Like, the math isn't mathing here, guys. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, if you look at the numbers, almost 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. They have less than $1,000 in their savings account and more debt than they have in cash. Mm-hmm. And it's as a result of that one thing that you said, the embarrassment. The embarrassment has stolen more dreams than anything else, in my opinion, because people will not sacrifice the short term for the long term gains. And if that's you, then you're going to be driving that Honda Civic when you're 70 because it's all you can afford.
Well, not just that.
I mean?
Advertising is geared to target you for your insecurities.
Exactly.
So if you already have some degree of underlying insecurity about your position in the world, the Louis Vuitton marketers are going to figure out a way to convince you subconsciously that by purchasing their belt or their wallet, that your position in society is going to advance.
Be elevated.
The same thing is true with any luxury car manufacturer. And so what I've often found is, I think one of the greatest status symbols that you can have is in your body, and it doesn't actually cost that much money. You can get a Planet Fitness membership for $10 a month,
right?
Last I checked. And so if you actually have a physically impressive body, people will compliment you on it. You no longer feel the need to buy that expensive shirt, to own that expensive watch, to drive that expensive car, because people are complimenting you on the thing that you're walking around with everywhere you go.
Right.
And so oftentimes material goods are costly and inefficient ways to overcome the fact that your body isn't impressive and neither are your career accomplishments. And if you simply focused on getting an impressive body and an impressive career, you would both have more money, have more health, and no longer feel the anxiety or insecurity that are leading to these frivolous purchases in the first place.
Well, that's the key right there, is that it's not even about the way that others are viewing you. It's about the way that you're viewing yourself. The confidence that you gain from having, you don't have to be a bodybuilder, okay? But being in shape, the confidence that gains, the confidence that you gain from making better food choices, the confidence you gain from doing a daily action that's not something that you want to do, but you do it anyway because you know it's good for you. Those things is what lead to better self-esteem and enable you to make better financial decisions in the future anyway. And you can apply that discipline to the finances once you learn it on the health side. I'm a big fan of the health piece, of getting that dialed in before a lot of other things, because of the confidence that transfers to everything else, and then the discipline that transfers to everything else. Like if you discipline yourself to get in shape, and again, in shape can be your definition of in shape. I'm not telling anybody, like I think some people sacrifice mental health in an effort to get in physical shape,
Sure.
and you start shooting up, TRT or Tren or any of these other things, because you feel like you have to look a certain way. And then that's just insecurities masking as confidence anyway. You know what I'm saying? So it has to be for you, and you have to define what that means for you. But if you're 100 pounds overweight, it's more difficult to instill confidence in yourself, because you're teaching yourself every single day when you make these bad decisions that you're not worthy of making better nutritional decisions. You're not worthy of having the body that you want to have. And if you can figure that piece out first, there's a lot of other things that follow, and that part is free. Like you like Planet Fitness is $10 a month, but you don't even have to do that. Get a pull-up bar in your garage and go for walks every day. You know what I mean? Like do something that's going to instill a little bit more confidence, and that will transfer over to your finances. So let's talk a little bit about the money making aspect of this, Alex, because like we talked about, there's a lot of personal finance gurus out there that will talk about the saving piece and the investing piece and cut this expense and cut that expense. But again, if you're worried about the $90 a month that you're going to save by cutting this little thing out, if you're worried about the $15 a month that you spend on Netflix and you're going to cut that subscription out because I'm going to save that $15 a month, I'm going to put it away for compound interest sake. It's just like you are focusing, like your energy could be focused on making an extra $2,500 a month. And then that $2,500 a month can go to allowing you to make that purchase without even thinking about it, and still have $1,500 left over to put into whatever your investment vehicle of choice would be. So let's talk about the money making side of this, Alex. You started your career as a professional athlete, and then worked as an analyst at a global macro hedge fund, and now you're have used those things to be able to move into the online space. How can somebody listening right now go out and think about, how do I apply what I know, my skills, my knowledge, to making some extra cash?
Yeah, so I think to first draw on a personal fitness lesson is it takes delayed gratification to have success, making money in a new venture and changing your body. And so when I first started out building my online audience, which is the audience that has ultimately allowed me to make $1 million independent of a corporation, is I approached it the same way I approached a training plan. I realized that the first 90 days were going to kind of suck. I realized that it was going to be a lot of work and I wasn't going to get that much of a return from it. But I also realized that the way that I was approaching fitness was unique, was enjoyable, was differentiated, and it wasn't presently offered by others on the market. And so I always tell people, if you're looking for a way to stand out, if you're looking for a way to make a little bit of extra money, first think about what makes you weird. For me, what made me weird was my dedication to the gym and my insistence that I would eat delicious food every meal of every day. Pizzas, burgers, fried chicken, tacos. I would be cooking that stuff in my office, bringing in bone marrow, bringing in sausages, bringing in lamb patties, just to make like essentially gourmet meals because I insisted on eating like a king every meal of the day. And I realized at my last W-2 job that if I didn't grow an online audience, my negotiating capacity in my role would diminish year over year. And so I thought it was a necessity for me to build an online audience if I wanted to have any sort of lasting power in my industry. And what ended up happening was I got thousands of people following me for what I was doing on a diet on the diet side, which was not counting calories, not going hungry, eating protein dominant real food, gourmet style, every meal of every day, and being shredded year round. And I was able to make over $10,000 per month while I had my full-time job. And the way I was able to do that was I never prioritized getting promoted at work. I always thought it made much more sense to try to make an additional few $1,000s on my own time than an additional few $1,000s on my employer's time, because I had more negotiating leverage, and I had more of an opportunity, more latitude to pave my own path if I could diversify my revenue streams from one employer to multiple customers or clients who paid me. And so I never tried to get promoted, even though I got promoted twice at Google, even though I made more money every year I was working in corporate America. My goal was never to get promoted. It was always to expand my options and always to maximize my negotiating leverage. And so I used that to get a $50,000 raise after I left Google. And my last year at Google, I made over $100,000 more than my first year at Google. But the whole time, my focus was, what can I do to build value independent of my corporation? And because it was going to take time, and because it was going to take a lot of focus and a lot of energy, I needed to do it in a channel that was inexhaustible for me, because I was going to approach fitness no matter what. Chances are, if you're listening and you're looking for something that you want to channel your ideas and your passions to, there's probably something that makes you weird. And so if you are willing to just invest time into exploring that area that makes you weird, even if you're not making money those first 90 to 180 days, there's a much greater chance that you're not going to quit. And the most important thing to do when trying to make your money on your own is to not quit. Because if you can stay in the game long enough, eventually a door is going to open that you couldn't envision when you got started. And you're going to end up making more money. You're going to end up meeting more entrepreneurial friends. You're going to start seeing patterns and seeing opportunities that you didn't see when you got started. But the first thing you need to do is get started.
Yeah. Well, I really liked what you said at the beginning of that, which is that this is the path that you chose to follow. And it does not mean that it's the only path. Like, somebody else listening might be like, man, I really like my job. I really like the company that I work for. I would really like to grow into a different role here. And it's like, okay, great. So don't take the free time to work on the side thing like Alex was doing. Take the free time to learn how to negotiate your salary better. Take the free time to learn a new skill that is valuable to the company that you're wanting to grow inside of. Take the time to go network with people outside of the company that you're in, so you can be aware of other opportunities within that same space to utilize your skill set, maybe at a different company that is just as cool as the company you're working for. Like, it starts with the clarity of like what you want to get out of this opportunity that you're currently in. If the goal is to be completely out of it because you just don't like it, if it's just like, I hate this thing, like the pain threshold is one to be aware of, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because if there's a wide variety of pain out there for people that are listening, where they're like, I hate my job, I hate getting up and doing this, but I don't have any other options because I have to make money and this is the only thing I know how to do. And it's like, okay, well, if you're in that situation, then you might need to like make a adjustment or change much, much, much faster than somebody who's like, I tolerate my job, it's not my favorite thing, but like, it is what it is. It makes me some money and it pays my bills and it gives me medical insurance and whatever. Well, that person might be able to take 3 years to make an exit strategy from that company. Whereas if you hate what you're doing, you might be 3 months and you might have to attack the side hustle hours more aggressively in the meantime. But either way, the goal, the whole idea here is like, you have to come up with a plan to get out of what you're currently doing and put yourself in a position to win in something that you actually want to be winning in.
Yeah. If you don't make it your number one priority to escape the plantation, you're never going to escape the plantation. You're just going to be a slave your whole life. 100%. And that's what most people resign themselves to, because it feels hard. Right. But that's the cool thing about training is training's hard, but you can do it. And every day that you finish a workout, you remind yourself that just because it felt hard didn't mean that I needed to quit. And I actually can do things that feel hard. And so once you win something that took months to months or years to come to fruition, you realize that delayed gratification is essential to escaping the plantation. And you look at everybody else who hasn't escaped the plantation and you realize that there's all these pitfalls that they're not realizing that are keeping them stuck.
And it changes your definition of what's possible. Once you do that first thing that takes something that you previously thought was impossible and makes it possible, your mind immediately goes to like, well, man, what else could I do that feels impossible right now? Like for you now, you make money online, but your first dollar in doing that thing was probably the most important dollar that you ever made. It's like, oh, well, somebody just paid me like money here. Okay, well, if I made $500 this month, can I make $5,000 next month? Can I make
Oh yeah.
10,000? Can I make 20, 40, 80? You know what I mean? Like if I previously thought this was impossible, but I worked really hard for months on end to see something come from it, and something did come from it, man, that's awesome. Well, what can we do now to go further down that path? So tell me how you made your most recent dollar now, Alex, to bring this conversation full circle.
Well, my most recent dollar is through business consulting. I got my start online selling digital products.
Okay.
And so my first day, I thought, I'd sell couple $100 worth of an ebook that I released because a lot of people were asking, how are you eating so much delicious food and staying ripped? And so I thought, oh, I think it's good information. I'll get this out to everybody, and I'll probably cover my production costs. I'm not really trying to make money on it. I just want the information out there. Well, I made like $500 my first day, which was totally eye-opening to me. And $500 my first day, November 2019, turned into $25,000 in a quarter by Q3 2020, turned into 10,000 a month at the beginning of 2021, turned into 20,000 a month at the beginning of 2022. And then as I've gotten online, I've realized that actually the training that I had as a hedge fund analyst, as a Google employee, but also as an internet entrepreneur, positions me to help people run their businesses and run their lives substantially more effectively than they've been able to date on their own.
Mm.
And so what I do is I use what are essentially behavioral economic frameworks that I created or discovered to make money making a lot simpler, to make dieting and fitness a lot simpler. And I work with executives and entrepreneurs to help insert these frameworks into their own lives so that they are experiencing exponentially better results with negligibly more, if not less effort than before.
Mm.
So my most recent dollar, a client who I've been working with, where we do one consultation call a month and we talk through how his side business is developing. And I clarify to him, okay, don't chase this opportunity, chase that opportunity, prioritize this group of clients over that group of clients. Make sure you're working with people who can pay you instead of people who can't pay you. You need to get one six-figure deal this year to make the rest of your smaller deals, total something meaningful. That guy wanted to re-up. And so I'm going to continue working with that guy. Previous to that, I work with, a lot of entrepreneurs who run multiple businesses and they want more clarity and what they should be focusing on, again, to simplify their life and make more money with less effort, because that's exactly what you have to do when you're starting out. You need to figure out how to be incredibly efficient with your time so that you can free up those 2, 3, 4 hours per day that you can work outside your job to get your first $2, $3, $4,000 per month of additional income.
Dude, I love the conversation, man. Thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show. Let's move into the last segment here, sponsored
Sure.
by GoHighLevel.com. If you want a free 30-day trial of Go High Level's CRM all-in-one digital marketing platform, you can go to GoHighLevel.com/Travis. What profession other than your own do you think that it would be fun to master, Alex?
I really like people who can control the mind. And so, a lot of, religious practitioners, folks who can specialize in meditation, people who can control their mind can control their future. Because if you can control your thoughts, you can control your actions. And if you can control your actions, then you can't lose. And so any profession that is closely associated with rewiring the brain, hypnosis, I think would be a really cool one. Neuro-linguistic programming would be a really cool one. and frankly, as I continue to improve my toolkit to work with clients on a deeper level, it's sort of incumbent upon me to add these skills to my skill set. So, if we're to talk in 5 years, it wouldn't surprise me if neuro-linguistic programming is something that I bring to the table at that point. So, being a hypnotist, being a neuro-linguistic programmer, these are high on my list of to-do items.
If you could sit on a park bench with someone, past or present, and chat for an hour, who would it be?
Wow. John F. Kennedy would be a pretty interesting dude. I think that guy, despite his misgivings, had a very strong moral compass. His dad, Joseph P. Kennedy, was probably a really smart, really interesting guy to speak to as well. I think those guys would be, quite high up there. I think Thomas Jefferson, very intelligent dude. If you think about the types of books that guy was interested in reading, he was very clearly a polymath who wasn't just highly educated on political science or languages, but he was, a botanist. He had a very good understanding of how the natural world worked. So, I think if I were just to spitball them, JFK, Joseph P. Kennedy, and Thomas Jefferson are probably top three.
How do you like to consume information best? Books, audiobooks, blogs, podcasts, YouTube videos?
I think blogs, microblogs like Twitter. I really like information on Twitter, and then podcasts.
Who's a good Twitter follow?
Really like Mike Cernovich. I think that guy's been ahead of a lot of trends. I like Adam Townsend. His handle's Adam Scrabble. Those guys have helped cut through a lot of noise politically and economically. And the people who follow them are, they tend to be better off financially and personally if you can stick with it for a few years.
What is your go-to pump-up song, Alex?
Ooh, I like gangster rap, man. That might seem a little bit weird, based on what I do, but I really, really like NWA music. Straight Outta Compton is a great pump up song. So I like that. I like the Ramones. I like the Clash. Death or Glory is a great pump up song. So I think Straight Outta Compton, Death or Glory. Sheena is a punk rocker from the Ramones. Great song. Get pumped up on all those.
What is something that you are not very good at?
Ooh, sympathy. People might think that I lack empathy. I don't lack empathy. I understand how people think. I understand losing mindsets. I just don't have sympathy for them. And so I think the word empathy gets commonly misused and misapplied to mean sympathy. I'm not very sympathetic. I look at the challenges that people face. I know they're hard. Everybody's life's hard. And so I don't really take excuses very, very well. I don't not take them. I just think that they're kind of meaningless. And not because I can't empathize with people, but because I don't sympathize with them.
And as we get everything wrapped up here, bro, where can people go to find more from you?
Find me on my social handles, Alex Feinberg 1, on X, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. You can go to my website, insanelyaddictive.com. New website coming soon, feinbergsystems.com. That's going to tie together a lot of the financial items that we've talked about, as well as the executive coaching. And so probably go to feinbergsystems.com if you want to have a new glimpse of what is to come in 2025 and beyond.
Feinbergsystems.com. If this conversation has intrigued you at all, go check out some of the stuff that Alex has going on. Alex, thanks for taking time to do this. Everybody else listening, remember, money only solves your money problems, but it's a little bit easier to solve the rest of your problems if you got a little bit of money in the bank. So let's solve that problem first here on the Travis Makes Money podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you guys next time. Peace out.